Sri Sachidananda Sadguru Sainath Maharaj Ki Jai. Sai Baba the Master, Chapter 12. Sai Baba the Man and the Master. Sai Baba was about 5.5 feet tall, neither stout nor lean. His complexion was golden yellow. His eyes were bluish and shone most mysteriously even in darkness. Indeed, they were the object of the devotee's wonder. The portrait, now available to us in shops, with him seated on the stone, seems to show a slight squint in his left eye, but indeed there was no such thing. His nostrils were prominent. At the time when Sri Sai Sharananandaji had seen him, Baba had some of his teeth missing, and the rest were not pure white in color. He never brushed them but only rinsed his mouth with a little water every morning. He never drank either coffee or tea, but he never told anyone to abstain from the same. He never told anyone how he contracted the habit of smoking chilim. He always used the same clay pipe for the purpose. Devotees used to offer him many pipes, but he never used them. He stacked them in the hollow of masjid wall. Baba always wore garments made of coarse whitish cloth. He never disclosed to anyone why he wore a small piece of cloth around his head, except when he washed himself. Baba was never seen without his long shirt kafni. At bathing time, he wore a langote vestless underwear. However, he never took a daily bath. He used to do so as and when he had the whim. Sometimes he did not bath for even 6 weeks. Very rarely, Baba tied a green lungi around his waist and after washing his kafni in water, dried it above the sacred fire and wore it. The piece of cloth around his head too was very rarely changed and was never washed. When he decided to change the kafni, Baba sent for a tailor and told him, "Get me a kafni." When it was brought, he always paid the tailor more than his worth. Usually, he changed it every 2 or 3 months. When he did, when he did, he threw the old kafni in the sacred fire and did namaskar to it. Sometimes, when he changed his kafni, he used it to distribute a few more to some of his devotees. Left to himself, Baba spoke very little. Mostly, he was calm and quiet, speaking only when it was absolutely necessary. He never laughed loudly but smiled gently. Most of them he used to sit with his eyes closed. Most of the time, he used to sit with his eyes closed. When a devotee approached him for darshan, he used to glance at him. Sometimes he did not even do that. Yet he was always playful in the presence of children. The most surprising thing is that Baba never sat leaning against the wall in the mosque. Even when he sat with his legs outstretched, he always sat a few inches away from the wall. Besides, he never lay down during the day. He hardly visited any temple at Shirdi. Sri Martand, the son of Mahalsapati, had watched Baba and his ways quite closely. He told me that at certain times Baba used to send the barber named Bala Nai and used to have his head shaved. Bala Nai used to trim Baba's mustache so that it ends looks pointed. After the haircut, Baba used to thrust his hand into the pocket of his kafni and pay the barber whatever came to his hand, but it was always much in excess of the normal payment due for a shave. There are a few characteristic gestures and actions of Baba. Every morning he used to walk down to and from the mosque to the crossroads in front of the neem tree or what is now called Gurusthan. Then he used to stand in front of the masjid and wave his hands towards the cardinal points repeatedly as though he beckoned to some invisible entities. Then he used to turn to his seat in the masjid. One Haridwar Bua came to Shirdi. He always used to sit near the pillar at the corner of the sacred fire in the masjid. One day, a girl sat in that place. Haridwar Bua soon came there and commanded her to get up and sat there. Baba flew into a rage and ordered all to clear out from the masjid and to sit in the front yard. After some time, Haridwar Bua again came to masjid and sat in his usual place, but Baba again threw him out. Then the Bua realized that Baba was displeased with that what he did to the girl. When everything belongs to God, how can anyone claim anything as his own, including the sitting place? We have noted in another chapter that on a holy Diwali day, Baba had thrust his hand to the burning fire dhuni to save the child of a blacksmith who slipped accidentally and fell in the fire at a far off village. The burns on Baba's hand were terrible to look at. When the devotee suggested that he should get his forearm treated by a doctor, Baba smiled and said, "Even if this body is kept on a pile of of 2000 dung cakes and burnt up, we must be able to look on it unperturbed and see what happens. That is real evidence of jnana, self realization. One day, when Baba was having lunch, a dog entered Dwarka Mai and put its snout in the can containing buttermilk. Bade Baba, who saw it once, ordered another devotee present to throw away the polluted buttermilk. Baba said, "Why?" He then gave it to one Babu and got a dish prepared with it, which he ate at night. Sri Marthand, son of late Sri Mahalsapati, has recounted to me of the following characteristic incident. One day, a palanquin was carried to and set down in front of Dwarka Mai by a band of attendants. It was curtained on all sides so that the inmates of it could not be seen. One of the attendants accompanying the palanquin carried a big vessel with its opening secured by a piece of cloth into the mosque and kept it before Baba. Baba brusquely said, "Who has come in the palanquin? Whoever it is, remove the curtains." The curtains were removed. The person in the palanquin was the princess of Chimnabai, one of the then princely states of India. Baba told Mahalsapati to see what the vessel contained. The latter looked up and said, "It contains gold." Baba, pointing at himself, said to Malsapati, "Is this, that is Baba's form, the real gold, or is that?" "You are the treasure," said Mahalsapati. "Then send the vessel back to her," ordered Baba. The vessel was promptly returned to the palanquin. Who is the prince of the givers and who the receiver? During the holy 9-day festival Navratri, one Harisitaram Dikshit came to Shirdi from Nagpur. He saw everyone offering various fruits to Baba on the holy day and was sad that he had not the sense to do so. Just at that moment, a devotee was distributing grapes that Baba had given him for the purpose to all the devotees present. Dikshit too was given one. He at once offered it to Baba and the latter ate it up. Dikshit was immensely happy at Baba's gesture. For anyone else in Baba's place would have found fault with him for offering again what had already been offered once. But Baba responded to Dikshit's yearning to offer something to him. Indeed, what is involved in the gesture of offering something to Guru or God? One can only offer what God had given to him. One day, a certain devotee was pressing Baba's feet. Sai Baba suddenly ordered him to stop doing so. The devotee felt dejected and appealed to Baba with tears in his eyes to accept his service. But it was of no avail. At first, he couldn't understand why Baba had so suddenly reacted like that. But on cool introspection, realized that some unworthy thought had passed his mind just at that moment. Baba was only responding to that. Bhav Sahib Pradhan was a devotee of Saint Madhavnath, a contemporary of Sai Baba. Pradhan was sent to Baba by his guru to secure his blessings for the ear holding ceremony of a boy. He also wanted to know whether only goldsmith should do the job. Pradhan arrived at Dwarka Mai and sat among the rest of devotees. No one had introduced him to Baba. Baba suddenly said, "Brother Madhavnath's spiritual son had come here today. We shall partake of Madhavnath's prasad. I had a sack of gold on the back of an ass, but thieves had stolen it away. A hole in the ear has to be pierced only by a goldsmith. It is very difficult to pull on in this naughty world. You have been sent here only to know all this. Tell this much to my brother Madhavnath." Devotee Purantare had a very bad headache. He sent word to Baba through Dr. Pillai that it would be better for him to end his life than be subject to such a pain. Baba had sent him a snuff-like substance which immediately relieved Purantare of his headache. In 1918, on the eve of the holy day of Sri Ramanavami Nama Saptaha, incessant chanting of divine name for 7 days was going on. Several devotees were seated in Dwarka Mai. Baba called Shama and told him, "Go out and fetch the candy which the old man standing outside has brought for me." Shama went out and did find a very old man standing there. He looked senile owing to age. Saliva was dripping from his parted lips and flies were swarming all over his face. Shama led the old man by hand to the Baba's presence. Baba then kept his hand on old man's head in a blessing, took a little candy from a small bundle in his garment and gave the rest to him as prasad. There were occasional flashes of lighter moods in Baba. At such times, he used to play with his devotees. For instance, he used to hide the turban of a devotee like Tatya and enjoy the fun. Sometimes he put Tatya's turban on his own head and used to mimic Tatya's manner and walk. Again, when Mahalsapati was alone with him, Baba used to press Mahalsapati's feet. When the latter protested, Baba used to say, "Don't mind this, we are the same. People might say great things of me, but I am no such." Sakhe writes, on several occasions I was invited to get Upadesh, initiation from others like Upasani Baba, Mrs. Athabai of Sangola, Pathak Maharaj of Moregon. In each case, I referred the question to Sai. His response was negative. Though there was no formal initiation by Baba, he wished me to look to him alone with undeviating attention, and he was powerful enough and willing to look after my interests, temporal and spiritual. An Anglo Indian once visited Baba, not out of faith but idle curiosity. Baba emptied the pots in the mask of water and placed them inverted. The visitor thought the fakir was crazy and inquired mockingly what he did. Sharp came the reply. Some pots, that is, individuals, come to me like that. What can I do for them? B.A. Patel, an athlete, used to demonstrate his physical power by forcefully massaging Saibaba's body, lifting him up and carrying him to his seat. One day he tried his utmost to do so but could not lift Sai up. The latter laughed mockingly. Baba taught me not to be proud of my physical strength, for it is nothing before spiritual strength, Patel says. Sai once repeatedly asked a sadhu for dakshina of 5 rupees. The latter said in a temper, "You know that I have no money. Why do you ask me still?" Sai smiled sportively and said, "You may have nothing to give, but why lose your composure?" What a practical method of teaching. The Master. Though clothed in the human frame of Sai Baba, Though clothed in the human frame, Sai Baba is essentially a mystic, a saint. That was how everyone treated and approached him, and the very name which they tagged on to him reveals that. If he lived and moved amidst the frail mortals, it is chiefly as a missionary of God and of the life divine. I am the slave of God, he said. Allah Malik is the constant thought. This is a Brahmin, a white Brahmin, a pure Brahmin. This Brahmin will lead lakhs of peoples to the Shubra Marga, the path of purity, and take them to the goal right up to the end. This is Brahmin Masid. That sums up the essence of Sai Baba and his relation to the people amidst whom he lived. But what was he, as viewed by himself, and his relation to the rest of the creation? For that alone ultimately decides whether he was chiefly a man or a mystic. In different contexts, he said, I live at Shirdi and everywhere I am Parvardigar, God, I am formless and everywhere. I am in everything and beyond. I fill all space. All that you see to taken together is myself. I do not stir. All the universe is in me. It would be utter perversion to identify Sai Baba with the physical frame, to look upon him as a mere human being in the light of what we have noted in the earlier chapters. This, no doubt, was the significance of cryptic words which Baba in a vision once uttered to Dasganu Maharaj. All the oilmen and grocers of Shirdi teased me a lot, so I left the place. This is, of course, his characteristic way of referring to the lower propensities of the people as though he was referring to certain individuals. The most succinct of Baba's recipe for spiritual perfection is people think they are all different from one another, but in this they are very wrong. For example, I am inside you and you are inside me. You should continue to think in this way, then you will realize it. Baba embodies this outlook and the ultimate state of this realization, and he prescribes the same to us. That was how he could say, feeding the hungry witch is feeding me, or I am also in the mire besmeared pig. He said, this body is but my house. My Murshad Guru has long ago taken me away from this. Still, nearly 60 years after Baba's Mahasamadhi, people try to trace Baba's parentage, name, religion, and caste as though they are inescapable, hard, objective realities. They try to investigate the place of birth, guru, and other details of one who is not his body and who never was in one place. If Baba appeared as a sadhu in one place and a bhil, a tribesman, in another, then is Sai to be regarded as a bhil or a sadhu? However, the name that people tagged to him seems to have been specially ordained for him by God, and no other word can be so aptly sum up his name, quality, creed, parentage, and caste. He is Sai Baba, just that. He was in all, and he is in all, and he is all. A more complete embodiment of Christ's injunction, love the neighbor as thyself, cannot be found than he. For neighbor to Baba meant the whole of existence with all its creatures, and he loved them as himself, as he knows, as his own self, and not as anyone would love himself. If this be the basis of Baba's infinite love for all creatures, what fuller fulfillment of the Buddha's doctrine of compassion for all creatures and ahimsa can be found than in this Saint Father? In spite of their recurring errors, how the devotees of Sai were constantly made aware of Sai Baba's perfection can be best seen in Mrs. Manager's account. One's first impression of Sai Baba was derived from his eyes. There was such power and penetration in his glance that none could continue to look at his eyes. One felt that Sai Baba was reading him or her through and through. Soon one lowered one's eyes and bowed down. One felt that he, Sai, was not only in one's heart but in every atom of one's body. A few words, a gesture would reveal to one that Sai Baba knew all about the past, present, and even future, and about everything else. There was nothing else to do for one except to submit trustfully and to surrender oneself to him. And there he was to look after every minute detail and guide one safe through every turn and vicissitude of life. He was the Antaryami, call him God or Satpurusha, one who is in the absolute state of being, in Sahajasthiti, the original state, or what you like. But the overpowering personality was there, and in his presence, no fears, no questioning had any place, and one resigned oneself, and that was the only course, the safest and the best course. One noticeable difference between Sri Sai Baba and other saints struck me. I have moved with other notable saints also. I have seen them in high samadhi or trance condition, entirely forgetting their body and in its course, effacing the narrow notion of the self confined to the body, and I have seen them later getting conscious of their surroundings, knowing what is in our hearts and replying to us. But with Sri Sai Baba, there was this peculiar feature. He had not gone into trance to achieve anything or to reach any higher position or knowledge. He was every moment exercising a double consciousness, one actively utilizing the ego called Sri Sai Baba and dealing with other egos in temporal or spiritual affairs, and the other entirely superseding all egos and resting in the position of the universal soul or ego. He was exercising and manifesting all the parts and features incidental to both the states of consciousness. Other saints would forget their body and surroundings and then return to it. But Sri Sai Baba was always in and outside the material world. Others seemed to take pains and by effort to trace the contents of others' mind and read their past history. But with Sri Sai Baba, this was not a matter of effort. He was in the all knowing state always. It is not merely his power that endeared him to his devotees. His loving care, combined with those powers, made Shirdi a veritable paradise to the devotees who went there. Directly we went there, we felt safe that nothing could harm us. When I went and sat in his presence, I always forget my pain, my body, the itself with all mundane concerns and anxieties. His accessibility to all and at all hours practically was remarkable feature of his. My Darbar Royal Assembly is always open, he used to say at all hours. He had nothing to fear from scrutiny and nothing shameful to conceal. All his actions were open and above board. Another distinguishing feature of his life was freedom from care and anxiety. He had no interest to serve or protect, no institution to seek support for or maintain, no acquisitions to safeguard, no private property to feel anxious about. Though most of Sai Baba's devotees had this insight, only some of them could be careful enough not to lose the sight of it under the blunting effect of familiarity and prolonged contact. Not that it would lessen Baba's influence, only they are likely to miss the joy of it and the real significance of their life's precious contact with Him. To draw a parallel, Jesus told His apostles of His being the Christ and of the power of their faith in Him. Yet, when their boat was tossed by a stormy sea, they panicked and Jesus Christ rebuked them as men of little faith. His appearance in flesh and blood made them confuse the Christ with Jesus, the Son of Mary. So too, in spite of several insights into Lord Krishna's divinity, Arjuna repeatedly erred into treating him just as a human comrade, a mere friend of Yadava clan, for which he apologizes in Bhagavad Gita. Such a view is presented by some accounts of Baba. Most surprisingly, this too comes from one of the Baba's most intimate devotees, Madhavrao Deshpande, whom Baba called Shama. And Shama did repent when Baba took Samadhi that he did not make the best use of that contact. Except on rare occasions, like the cure of a snake bite, Baba rarely graced him with miraculous experiences. Once Shama even asked him, perhaps in a light-hearted way, Baba, you have granted so much wealth, property, and position to so many of your devotees, but why haven't you given me anything? You are a fakir wearing rags, sleeping on a gunny or a sackcloth in this old, dilapidated mask. You are too miserly and you even beg your food from others. But everyone calls you God, and it is we that made you one. If we deny that, who can question us? Baba smiled very charmingly, cast a long, loving glance at his beloved child, and said, money and wealth are not for you, something else is in store for you. On one occasion, a Sindhi merchant offered to give golden sovereigns to his dearest of devotees to Sai, that is Shama, but Sai Baba objected to it and did not allow him to give. Instead of giving money to Shama as he gave to others, Baba gave him always sacred books like Eknath Bhagavata, Vishnu Sahasranama, the thousand divine names of Lord Vishnu, and silver padukas, holy feet. Even among the dishes offered to him, Baba knew that Shama did not relish savories, so he never gave them to Shama, and when all other devotees left him, Baba gave him a mango or some sweet. Perhaps this very humanity of Baba was an obstacle to Shama to have faith in him as Sadguru, par excellence. As Shama kept closest to Baba, he had such closer glimpses of Baba's greatness as others were apt to miss. For instance, one day someone approached Baba for money. Shama knew that Baba hid it in his pocket, but Baba told the man a lie and said that he has no money with him. Later, when the man had left the mosque, Shama frankly asked him, you are a fakir with no attachment for money and wedded to truthfulness. Why did you tell him a lie? Do you not always exhort us to be truthful? Baba replied that as it was not good for him to be given the money, and he would not heed Baba's words if he were to tell the truth, and thus for his own good, the man has to be treated so. As we have not yet transcended the identification of ourselves with our bodies, we cannot help associating our idea of Baba's greatness with his physical form. For after all, we know him first and foremost in that form, and without it, we would never know of him, and to love him with all our heart, to impress it indelibly on our minds. It is very essential for our progress. For Jesus, the Christ too, like Baba, though he was the Word, he was Word made flesh in order to be known as. Dr. Gavankar records in his book how once a few visitors requested Baba to permit them to photograph him. At first, Baba refused. However, on persuasion, he agreed to get only his feet photographed. But then they tried to take an unfair advantage of it by taking a full picture. To their astonishment, only Baba's legs came off in the photograph. When yet another took a photograph without his consent, the picture that came off was that of the photographs of own Guru and not that of Sai Baba. Besides, Baba attended the dinner in Hemad Pant's house only in the form of his picture. When Bapu Sahib Tarkad forgot to offer Naivedya to Baba's picture in his shrine in Bandra, Sai Baba referred to the matter at Shirdi to Mrs. Tarkad and her son precisely at the same hour. That is the relationship between Sai Baba and his picture. Thus, we should look upon it as Baba himself who came to us in the form of the photograph. The remarkable rewards of such an attitude and are on our part and are its ultimate justification. A close study of Baba and his ways, as were noted by his immediate devotees, would help us to picturize Sai as a living force. We shall note then a few of his most distinct and striking aspects. What struck his devotees most and baffled them were his cryptic words and parables which few could understand besides the one to whom they were intended. A reference was already made to it in the earlier part of this book. Such were the strange, sudden and ungovernable flashes of Baba's anger for no reason whatsoever. Mention must be made of the strange mystical rites which Baba was seen to perform sometimes. For instance, Mrs. Manager writes, he would sit in the mornings near his duni, that is sacred fire, and wave his arms and fingers about making gestures which conveyed no meaning to us and saying Hak, that is God. Balakrishna Upashani Shastri records 1910. I went to the mosque and found Sai Baba at the dunya in the mosque. He was standing close to the fire and occasionally turning around himself. B.N. Chandorkar noted all the mantras that Baba uttered were either in Arabic or Persian but not in Sanskrit. Das Ganu Maharaj mentioned another interesting fact of Baba's odd conduct. Baba was occasionally doing something strange between 1 and 2 p.m. at the mosque with a cloth screen in front of him, and when he was alone, he would take out a pouch of 10 or 15 old coins of different denominations and rub his fingertips constantly. Abdullah, who served Baba with devotion and faith, describes the mystic rites which Baba undertook in the Lendi garden, and we have noted them elsewhere. We have already noted how during the Chavadi procession Baba used to pause for a little while opposite the Maruti temple and mutter something and made gestures to Maruti, the deity in it. Again, on certain occasions, Baba was seen intensely gazing at the four cardinal directions by turns and muttering something and even waving his staff as though commanding some invisible entities. One devotee records that one day he found Baba alone in the mosque, picking up a stone from the ground and threatening to throw it at some invisible entity without actually doing so. Gigi Narke writes, at an arati on my early visit, Sai Baba was in a towering position. He fumed, cursed, and threatened for no visible cause. I doubted if he was a madman. That was a passing thought. The arati was completed in the usual way. In the afternoon, I went and massaged his legs. Then he stroked my head and said, I am not mad. Lo, he was seeing my heart. Some of these gestures and words were indeed used by Baba for commanding the forces of nature. One Jaikar writes, for instance, once when I was in Masjid with him, there was a severe storm, howling the wind and rain were fierce. After a few minutes, Baba stepped onto the edge of the premises and cried out, evidently to the storm as it Christ in his time, Jaradhav, that is, stop a little. Then the storm abated very quickly. M.W. Pradhan, then High Court lawyer too, says, at my first visit, there was a severe storm and rain for a quarter of an hour. When I was with Baba at the masjid, I then thought that if the rain continued a little longer like that, streams would swell and getting back to my place at Bombay would be difficult and Baba would not grant me early leave to go away. Baba then looked at the sky and said, Hare Allah, Abhi Parsat Purakar, Mere Bal मेरे बच्चे घर जाने वाले हैं उनको सुख से जाने दे which means oh God enough stop the rain my children have to return home let them go back in comfort. As he spoke the rain became gentler and feebler. I felt that Baba knew my innermost thoughts. Then he gave me leave to go. Sometimes his words were less intelligible. For instance, one day Sai Baba, who was sitting in his usual place in the mosque, suddenly bawled out, oh, for no apparent reason. The next moment, his headdress and his kafni were suddenly found drenched with water, and water was dripping from them for more than half an hour. The little space in Dwarkamai became a pool of water. The devotees were amazed and silently swept out the water and dried Baba's clothes. Neither Baba had told them anything about it, nor they had the boldness to ask him. On the third day, Baba received a telegram from one of his devotees, Jahangirji Framji Daruwala, who offered his thanks to Baba for saving him. The full story in this the full story is this. Russo-Japanese war was in its bitterest phase. This devotee was the captain of a ship. When he found that all his steamers save three were all sunk by the enemy and the rest of them including his own would soon meet the same fate, he took out Baba's photograph from his pocket and with tears in his eyes prayed to Baba to save him and his three steamers. Baba at once appeared on the scene and towed all the sinking steamers to the bank from Sri Sai the Superman. M.W. Pradhan also records another instance. On a Thursday during that period, Baba was preparing food in handi, that is a pot to feed large numbers. He drove away everyone from masjid and was alone with his handi. At that time, to the great surprise and alarm of spectators, myself and two sons of Chandorkar went in. Baba, far from being angry, received us very well as though for granting wholly private interview. At the handi, I noticed with wonder that when the contents of cauldron were boiling, Baba used his own bare palm and not a spoon or ladle to stir the contents thoroughly to secure even and uniform consistency in the food or sira. His hand was not scalded or swollen by such use. But Baba's play with fire was not always so harmless, and the purpose could be something much more serious. Hemad Pant in his Sai Satcharitra writes, in the year 1910, Baba was sitting near the Dhuni on the holy day of Diwali and warming himself. He was pushing firewood into Dhuni, which was brightly burning. A little later, instead of pushing lots of wood, Baba pushed his arm into Dhuni. The arm was scorched and burnt immediately. This was noticed by the servant Madhav and also by Madhavrao Deshpande. They at once ran to Baba, and Madhavrao at once clasped his waist from behind and dragged him forcefully backward and asked, Deva, why have you done this? Then Baba came to his senses and replied, the wife of a blacksmith at some distant place was working the bellows of a furnace. Her husband called her, forgetting that her child was born on her waist. She turned around hastily and the child slipped into the furnace. I immediately thrust my hand into the furnace and saved the child. I do not mind my arm being burnt, but I am glad that the life of the child is saved. As Sai Baba himself said, saints exist to give blessings to the people both in temporal and spiritual fields, the former being utilized to draw them to the latter. All perfect saints are fishers of men's soul who use their power to free people from suffering, to bait them into the life eternal. Thus, Christ is the one who baptizes with the Holy Ghost. What Christians call baptism is what Hindus call Diksha or Brahmopadesha. Therein, man is initiated into or bathed in the mysteries of life, whereby he is born again into the Spirit. Once again, even the specific expressions used in this context in the two traditions are literally the same. That is, dying to the earlier life of mere sensuousness through repentance, it consists in action and not mere words. The transformation, which almost amounts to the death of old personality and the emergence in its place of another, which is sublime, is one of the central mysteries of the inner life. The kingdom of heaven is within. It is next only to the final consummation of becoming perfect, even as the Father in heaven is perfect. For which Sadguru, perfect master or God, come as Guru, or the Christ provides the model both for the way and the goal and life too. The perfection of the God man, call him the Christ, or the Word become flesh, or the Buddha, or the illumined, or Sadguru, the perfect master, consists in his effecting this spiritual rebirth among the people whom he fishes. This is the most mystic of all the mystics' rites. It is thrilling to see Baba in action in this field. Jai Sai Master.